but it is called everlasting, as in the text, "These shall go away into everlasting punishment." So, in 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verses 9 and 10, "Who shall be punished with everlasting destruction from the presence of the Lord, and from the glory of his power, when he shall come to be glorified in his saints, and to be admired in all them that believe." Now, what can be meant by a thing being everlasting after all temporal things are come to an end, but that it is absolutely without end? B. Such expressions are used to set forth the duration of the punishment of the wicked, as are never used in the Scriptures of the New Testament to signify anything but a proper eternity. It is said not only that the punishment shall be forever, but forever and ever. "The smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever." Revelation chapter 14, verse 11. "And they shall be tormented day and night, forever and ever." Revelation chapter 20, verse 10. Doubtless, the New Testament has some expression to signify a proper eternity, of which it has so often occasion to speak, but it is ignorant of any higher expression than this. If this does not signify an absolute eternity, there is no expression that does. C. The Scripture uses the same way of speaking to set forth the eternity of the punishment of the wicked that it uses to set forth the eternity of the happiness of the righteous, or the eternity of God himself. "These shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal." Matthew chapter 25, verse 46. The words everlasting and eternal in the original are the same. "And they," the saints, "shall reign forever and ever." Revelation chapter 22, verse 5. The Scripture has no higher expression to signify the eternity of God himself than that of his being forever and ever, as Revelation chapter 4, verse 9, "To him that sat on the throne, who liveth forever and ever." And in the 10th verse, and in chapter 5, verse 14, and chapter 10, verse 6, and chapter 15, verse 7. Again, the Scripture expresses God's eternity by this, that it shall be forever, after the world has come to an end. "They shall perish, but thou shalt endure, yea, all of them shall wax old like a garment. As a vesture shalt thou change them, and they shall be changed. But thou art the same, and thy years shall have no end." Psalm 102, verses 26 and 27. D. The Scriptures say that wicked men shall not be delivered until they have paid the uttermost farthing of their debt. Matthew chapter 5, verse 26. And until they have paid the last mite. Luke chapter 12, verse 59. That is, the utmost that is deserved, and all mercy is excluded by this expression. But we have shown that they deserve an infinite, endless punishment. E. The Scripture says absolutely that their punishment shall not have an end. "Where their worm dieth not, and the fire is not quenched." Mark chapter 9, verse 44. It will not do to say that the meaning is, "Their worm shall live a great while," or that it shall be a great while before their fire is quenched, if ever the time comes that their worm shall die. If ever there shall be a quenching of the fire at all, then it is not true that their worm dieth not, and that the fire is not quenched. For if there be a dying of the worm and a quenching of the fire, let it be at what time it will, nearer or farther off, it is equally contrary to such a negation. It dieth not. It is not quenched. 2. There are others who allow that the expressions of the threatenings to denote a proper eternity. But then, they say, it doth not certainly follow that the punishment will really be eternal, because, they say, God may threaten and yet not fulfill his threatenings. Though they allow that the threatenings are positive and peremptory, without any reserve, Yet, they say, God is not obligated to fulfill absolute positive threatenings, as he is absolute promises, because in promises a right is conveyed that the creature to whom the promises are made will claim, but there is no danger of the creature's claiming any right by a threatening. Therefore, I am now to show that what God has positively declared in this manner does indeed make it certain that it shall be as he has declared. To this end I shall mention two things. A. It is contrary to divine truth positively to declare anything to be real, whether past, present, or to come, which God at the same time knows is not so. Absolutely threatening that anything shall be is the same as absolutely declaring that it is to be. For any to suppose that God absolutely declares that anything will be which he, at the same time, knows will not be, is blasphemy, if there be any such thing as blasphemy. Indeed, it is very true that there is no obligation on God arising from the claim of the creature, as there is in promises. They seem to reckon the wrong way, who suppose the necessity of the execution of the threatenings to arise from a proper obligation on God to the creature to execute according to his threatenings. For indeed, the certainty of the execution arises the other way, that is, on the obligation there was on the omniscient God in threatening to conform his threatenings to what he knew would be future in execution. Though, strictly speaking, God is not properly obliged to the creature to execute because he has threatened, yet he was obliged not absolutely to threaten, if at the same time he knew that he should not or would not fulfill, because this would not have been consistent with his truth. So that from the truth of God there is an inviolable connection between positive threatenings and execution. They that suppose that God absolutely threatened or positively declared that he would do contrary to what he knew would come to pass, do therein suppose that he absolutely threatened contrary to what he knew to be the truth. And how can anyone speak contrary to what he knows to be true, in declaring, promising, or threatening, or any other way consistently with inviolable truth, is inconceivable. Threatenings are significations of something, and if they are made consistently with truth, they are true significations, significations of truth, or significations of that which shall be. If absolute threatenings are significations of anything, they are significations of the futurity of the things threatened. But if the futurity of the things threatened be not true and real, then how can the threatenings be a true signification? And if God in them speaks contrary to what he knows and contrary to what he intends, how he can speak truth is inconceivable. Absolute threatenings are a kind of predictions, and though God is not properly obliged by any claim of ours to fulfill predictions unless they are of the nature of promises, yet it certainly would be contrary to truth to predict and say such a thing would come to pass, which he knew at the same time would not come to pass. Threatenings are declarations of something future, and they must be declarations of future truth if they are true declarations. Its being future does not alter the case any more than if it were present. It is equally contrary to truth to declare contrary to what at the same time is known to be truth, whether it be of things past, present, or to come, for all are alike to God. Besides, we often have declarations in Scripture of the future eternal punishment of the wicked in the proper form of the predictions, and not in the form of threatenings. So in the text, "These shall go away into everlasting punishment," so in these frequent assertions of eternal punishment in the Revelation, some of which I have already quoted. The Revelation is a prophecy, and is so called in the book itself. So are those declarations of eternal punishment. The like declarations we have also in many other parts of Scripture. B. The doctrine of those who teach that it is not certain that God will fulfill these absolute threatenings is blasphemous in another way. That is, that God according to their supposition, was obliged to make use of a fallacy to govern the world. They own that it is needful that men should apprehend themselves liable to an eternal punishment, that they might thereby be restrained from sin, and that God has threatened such a punishment for the very end that they might believe themselves exposed to it. But what an unworthy opinion does this convey of God and His government, of His infinite majesty, wisdom, and all-sufficiency!